bugs, welcome back to another Nancy's Almost Daily December, where we're gonna try and upload like close to every single day, or at least a couple times a week, basically more than usual, which is one time a week. So we're gonna up that. So if you are interested in learning about Ecuador or bugs or just my random thoughts on things, then you should definitely subscribe with that bell notification ticked so that way you know what days I upload and what days I don't upload. But after December, it's Wednesdays or Thursdays-ish. I am here in the cloud forest, which is actually my favorite ecosystem in Ecuador, and I wanted to give you 5 reasons why the Ecuadorian cloud forest is my favorite ecosystem. I have some bias because I started out my Ecuador journey in the cloud forest. It was the first ecosystem I visited with students when we were doing a term abroad here, and so it's just like, it just has a special place in my heart because it's where I started. It's where I volunteered for 2 years. Like, I lived in the heart of this ecosystem for 2 years, and it's just like so special to me. So I may be a little bit biased, but I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why I think the Ecuadorian cloud forest is like the best ecosystem in Ecuador. But like, Ecuador is just the best in general, so we're like taking the best of the best. For those of you who don't know, my name is Nancy. I'm an entomologist, which means that I study bugs, and I live in Ecuador, where I normally, not during the pandemic, am conducting eco tours to these different ecosystems focused on entomology, ecology, conservation, and local culture. So if that sounds interesting to you, and after the pandemic is, you know, not a thing anymore, feel free to message me and let me organize your perfect vacation in Ecuador's paradises. Alright, so without further ado, here are the top 5 reasons why I think the cloud forest is the best. This is my opinion. This is based on my experiences. So 1 is that it's super close to the city. I think a lot of people just go to the Amazon because that's the jungle that they've heard of, but getting to the Amazon, especially like just in general, but especially in Ecuador, is like not easy. You fly to Ecuador, and then you take a plane or a bus to Lago Agrio or Coca, which are like the 2 main entrances to the Amazon. Cuyabeno is the northern Amazon, and Coca is kind of like the more southern mid-Amazon that has a good entry point. So you fly or bus your way down there, and then you get bused to the river, and then you get on a motorized canoe, and then the canoe takes you anywhere between 1 and 8 hours upriver, and then sometimes you need to get in a smaller canoe so that way you can be like paddled into the rainforest. It's an amazing experience. It is definitely not easy though, and is like takes a lot of travel. So when you find these like 5-day packages, you're like, oh yeah, 5 days in the Amazon. It's really like 3 days in the Amazon and 2 full days of travel. Whereas the cloud forest, you can actually start entering the cloud forest from Quito like an hour outside of Quito. And where I am in Mindo, which is further down the hill, you can get here in about 2.5 hours. So just the fact that it's so close makes the travel so much easier. You get in your plane, you come to Ecuador, I pick you up in the airport, and in 2 hours we are down in the cloud forest. So your vacation starts like that. And also, unless you're a huge jungle enthusiast, unless you're a biologist, it's like, yeah, I'm definitely going to the Amazon rainforest, because the Amazon, they don't look that different from the normal person's point of view. Like, you can get a solid jungle feeling, a solid jungle experience here in the cloud forest just as easily as you could in the Amazon. There are a couple differences. Of course, most of our large mammals have been hunted due to deforestation or habitat loss. There are a few key differences, but for the most part, if you're looking for the jungle experience and you don't want the jungle schloff to get there, the cloud forest is a great option. So number 2 is the temperature. You get this jungle experience at not jungle hot temperatures because we're at elevation. We are at about 4,000 feet, but the cloud forest extends up to about 8,000 feet. It's sometimes cold. Like, I tell my clients all the time, especially if we're going to the higher elevation cloud forest, like, bring a sweater. It's not that it's super cold, it's still like 60-ish degrees, but it's just so wet and damp because it is the rainforest that it feels colder than it really is. So always bring a sweater. But that means you get like your beautiful birds, and you get your mammals, and you get all of the amazing bugs and you're not hot, sweating, and dripping all the time because it's like, you know, a little bit toned down. We're at elevation. It's a little bit less hot here. So if you want the jungle experience, but you don't want to sweat your off, I highly recommend the cloud forest. Number 3 are the hummingbirds. So Ecuador has 130 plus species of hummingbirds, and the most biodiverse regions are the cloud forests on either side of the Andes. So you can get cloud forest on the western side and you get cloud forest on the eastern side of the Andes, and in about an hour direction either way from Quito you're in the cloud forest. But the hummingbirds change at different elevation points and on different sides of the Andes. Super diverse, and the Andes, especially in the cloud forest, create these little pockets of where you can find these different species. So there's just a huge diversity of hummingbirds, but also because it's not quite as hot here in the cloud forest, you can actually put up hummingbird feeders. And that means the hummingbirds will come to you, and you don't have to try and find like a little shimmering green thing this big in the middle of like all the jungle. But in the Amazon and in the coast, it's too hot, the sugar ferments, and the hummingbirds just don't drink it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but the feeders, like, are they bad for the hummingbirds? They're not really. You really only see the hummingbirds at the feeders in high numbers during certain seasons, and that's usually in the middle of the rainy season when all the rain is knocking off the flowers off the trees. So there's just not a lot of food for them during that period. But during the summer, it's harder to see the hummingbirds. They still come to the feeders, but it's not as kind of like jam-packed as it is during a couple months of the rainy season. Hummingbirds are also going to be supplementing their diet. It's not just sugar water they're eating, although that's kind of what they're mainly known for. They do also substitute their diet with insects because they need protein, and there are some hummingbirds that really only eat insects. So do not worry, the hummingbird feeders are not hurting them. They're okay, and it's a really great chance for you to just like sit here, enjoy your coffee, and enjoy the wildlife. Number 4 on this list is that the cloud forest spans a pretty wide area, as I was mentioning earlier, all the way from about 4,000 feet above sea level to about 8,000 feet above sea level. And at all these different elevational points, you get different climate, you get different feeling. So here in Mindo, we're kind of like at the bottom elevation of where you would find the cloud forest, and it still feels very cloud forest-like, but you can definitely notice changes just from here to Bella Vista, which is kind of at the top of the cloud forest at about 8,000 feet. Both the Amazon and the coast are at sea level, and so you aren't getting the separation of altitude. You can go for many miles in the Amazon and basically just still see the same stuff. There are some little different micro ecosystems, like in Cuyabeno there's this floating lake which is really cool that dries out in December. That's pretty unique, and Yasuni is unique in its own way, and the coast has like mangroves and jungle, but like they're pretty much the same. You're going to see many of the same species at those elevational points. But in the cloud forest, if you're bored, all you have to do is get in the car and drive like a half hour or an hour up the hill, and it's completely different. The species that you're going to see there is completely different. The climate, how it feels, is going to be colder or warmer. You're going to have different kind of ambiance and feelings, because like sometimes like down here we get a lot of rain because we're at the cloud line where the clouds are being pushed up the mountain, and then the cold air makes the clouds condense into rain. But higher up in altitude, they get most of their water just from the mist from the clouds. So having that experience is completely different. It's easier to find certain species way up high in the mountains than it is to find down here, and vice versa. It's really easy to go pop up and down the mountain, which in my opinion is a really good way to efficiently see many things if you have a short time here in the cloud forest. Again, you're not wasting a lot of time in traveling, and you can see a whole bunch of different elevational points. You can see a whole different ton of animals and plants and ecosystem shift. It's really interesting. And finally, number 5 on my list is that we're really close to a bunch of different things. Like, again, we're only a couple hours from the capital, and the cloud forest, because it's not a giant national preserve like the Amazon, you pass all these little towns, and all these little towns have things that you can do in them. So you're like, oh, I saw like the jungle, but it's kind of rainy this afternoon. You can go to the butterfly garden. Maybe you're like, I saw the jungle, but I'm really interested in the past cultures that were here. Then you can go to this site called Tulupe, which is a pre-Incan ruin site of traditional pools used by the people here who are called the Yumbo people. So you can go see that cultural stuff. If you're interested in seeing how coffee is planted here, you can go to coffee tours. If you're interested in learning how chocolate is made, you can do chocolate tours. And all of these things are within like a half-hour driving distance. So it's really easy for you to really bolster up your itinerary. Once you go to the Amazon, you're like in the Amazon, and I hope you like it because that's all there is. And sometimes it rains for a week on end and you just don't get to see as much as you wanted to just because the weather was crap. I had that happen with a client of mine last year, and we went to the cloud forest and it rained the entire time. Like, it wasn't like, it rains a lot here, it is the rainforest, but like it was excessive. And so we decided to change the itinerary and go somewhere else. And it worked. Because we're only like an hour from Quito, we actually just like escaped the cloud forest and went up to this really cool desert-like ecosystem that was halfway between Quito and where we were in the cloud forest. So if you're in the cloud forest, you have a lot of options, like if your weather is bad, or if you're just like, oh, I didn't like the jungle as much as I thought I would, or you're just like interested in seeing a bunch of different things as quickly as possible. The cloud forest is great for you because you can do culture, you can do different elevational points, you can see different animals, you can get chocolate tours and coffee tours and zip lining and rafting and horseback riding and waterfall climbing and going to see waterfalls. Like, there's a ton to do here. So it's really easy to maximize your time that you have in Ecuador in the cloud forest, still get that jungle experience, and still kind of fill it in with other things that you might find equally as interesting. So if you are interested after, you know, everything is over and coming and visiting me in Ecuador, I will leave all those links down at the bottom. I do make personalized tours that are perfect just for you. You tell me what you want. You tell me like how you like to travel, and, you know, we make it happen. We make dreams. So love bugs, I hope that you liked that little video. I hope that you learned a little bit more about the cloud forest, and I will see you all tomorrow soon. Make sure that bell notification is ticked so that way you know when I actually upload. All right, love bugs, I will see you soon. Bye.